Hello everyone, it's Jazz here, and today I am here with another monthly recommendations video. Monthly Recommendations is a Goodreads group that was created by Trina from Between Chapters and Kayla from Kayla Rain, and I have left the link to the group in the description if you want to check it out. But basically what we do is there is a theme for each month and we recommend books within that theme. For the month of June, the theme is around the world, so we're supposed to recommend books that have road trips or take place outside of our country or take place in places where you want to go, etc, etc, etc. But basically it's just books that kind of contain travel or different places. And yeah, I have 10 books for you today to recommend, so let's go on with the show. So to get us started, I've decided to start off with one of my favorite childhood books that I read as a kid and I would like to reread as an adult, and that would be Pippi Longstocking by Astrid Lindgren. So this book takes place in Sweden and it is about a crazy, wacky, fun little girl named Pippi who basically lives on her own. Her father is a sailor and he goes off on his ship and gets lost, and so she is just living on her own in her own house, and she moves in next door to this brother and sister named Tommy and Annika, and they basically just have wacky, crazy adventures together. I haven't read this in a while, like I said, but I do remember just loving this book as a kid, and I can't wait as an adult to just get a copy of this book and reread it. The next book that I have to recommend also takes place in Sweden, and it is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson, which is the first book in the Millennium Trilogy. This is about a reporter who runs his own magazine named Mikael Blomqvist and a young woman with very high intelligence named Elizabeth Solander, and there are about 3 different storylines in just the first book, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, but the main storyline is that these 2 characters band together to solve the mystery of a girl that went missing for this very wealthy man, and that's the basic one. But there are also several other storylines going on in there, which is why it's a little bit of a chunker book. Now, I definitely recommend this for the adults out there. It's definitely not for the super young people. I would definitely prefer that you were in your late teens and on before reading The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, but it is a really amazing book. It does have really interesting thought-provoking moments and really interesting deep moments and lots of psychology going on in there. I would say the other books in the series are definitely more kind of courtroom dramas or more espionage kind of geared, but the first book is definitely more about mysteriousness and also sort of problem solving with some of the life problems that the main characters have just on the outside of the story. I highly enjoy this book and find it super interesting. Weird fact about The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo: Stieg Larsson was also really inspired by Pippi Longstocking, weirdly enough. There's also several Pippi Longstocking references in the story. It's kind of odd considering the stuff that happens in that book, but it is sort of interesting and amusing at the same time. Third book I have to recommend is Tarzan of the Apes by Edgar Rice Burroughs, which takes place mostly in Africa. The story begins with a lord and lady who start off setting sail to West Africa and get sort of marooned on a desert island and thus suffer untimely death. And because of that, their little baby son has nobody to raise him, so the apes take him on as their child, and he is raised by apes, and they name him Tarzan. And basically, if you know anything about Tarzan, you know kind of the story on from there, and there is just a lot of action and adventure in this story. It's a lot of fun. It's a classic novel, but it's really easy to get into, and I read this book in audiobook, and it was super fun to listen to. So if you want to listen to it in audiobook, I highly recommend that as well. Then I have here A Company of Swans by Eva Ibbotson. So this is a book about a 19-year-old girl named Harriet, and she is sort of in a little bit of predicament because her father really wants her to live a certain kind of life, and he wants to arrange her marriage to this guy that she has no interest in marrying. And she does have some talent for ballet dancing, but because of all that stuff, her father is definitely not going to let her pursue any of that or anything. So basically, to get out of this arranged marriage, she decides that she's going to escape and join this ballet dance company, which is going to travel to the Amazon. And while she's in the Amazon, she meets this sort of mysterious dark man, and then insanity ensues. I really enjoyed this book when I read it. First of all, I'm a dancer, it's a dancing novel, so I'm gonna really enjoy that element, but even if you're not a dancer, you will still enjoy this book, I think. Plus, I don't know, men with a mysterious past are always kind of fun to read about. It's got an element of gothic romance, shall I say. So if you like Amazonian travel with a little teeny bit of like intrigue, I think you will enjoy A Company of Swans. So I decided to pick a book that included places that I have traveled before, and so I decided to go with The Usual Rules by Joyce Maynard. This is the story of a girl named Wendy who is about 13 years old, and she's just living her life in New York with her mother and her stepfather and younger sibling. And then her life is sort of torn apart when the 9/11 attacks happen, and her mother dies in the attacks, and it kind of throws her world for a loop. So she decides to go and live with her actual father in California, and it's just sort of about her dealing with loss as well as dealing with a transition and deciding what she wants to do and where she wants to sort of live. And so that's basically what The Usual Rules is about. I highly enjoyed this book. It's definitely like an emo, lots of feelings type of book. So if you're in the mood for a contemporary sort of novel that's like that, this is definitely a book to pick up. I thought it would be cool to yet again recommend a memoir, and I decided to go with Angela's Ashes by Frank McCourt. This book is Frank's story about his youth in Ireland. It's just basically the story of his youth until I think at least his 20s or so. And many sad things happened, but the book itself manages to not be too sad. It's not like the movie. They did make a film version of this, and I did feel like the film version was exceedingly depressing because it didn't have what the book has, and the book has elements of humor and sarcasm to me that make the book really entertaining to read, and also not dwelling in the sadness of some of the things that happen in his life. So I think it's definitely an entertaining read if you want to read a memoir. Next, I have a book called Take Me There by Carolee D. This is another US book, but it does contain a road trip, and that's why I've included it. This is about a boy named Dylan who kind of has a lot of trouble in his life. He does have kind of a past of having a criminal record, and trouble kind of follows him wherever he goes. In addition, he also has a father that is in prison, and so that sort of affects his life in a big way. So he's trying to navigate his newfound love for a girl named Jess and just life in general, and then through all this he does get in a big bit of trouble, and him and his best friend are kind of on the run because of it. He decides to go and visit his dad that he doesn't even really know in prison because his father is about to get executed. Basically him and his friend on this crazy road trip. So if you're looking for a road trip book that's different than like your normal average road trip book, this is definitely a book to pick up. Yet again, it's full of just a lot of emotion and insanity, and it does too though have some humorous moments because Dylan's best friend is not the smartest cookie in the jar. Is that even a phrase? well, it is now. I actually read this on a traveling moment. It was a very good travel book, so if you're looking for a book to read while you're on the road, this is the one you might want to check out. Next, I have the Parasol Protectorate series by Gail Carriger. Now, I can only say for sure that I recommend books 1 through 3 because I've only read 3 of the 5 books in this series, but I still wanted to include it because I really felt that it fit the theme. This series takes place in an alternate history in which vampires and werewolves and other supernatural beings are all well known to the public. They have positions in government and all that jazz. And basically it is about a young woman named Alexa who is born soulless, which gives her basically powers to kind of X out anybody else's sort of abilities. So if you were a werewolf, you would turn human instead of being a werewolf, things like that. So it's basically Alexa's adventures and the different mysterious things that happen to her due to her soullessness, as well as other crazy, insane things that happen with her due to the people that she knows. These books are full of humor, they're full of steampunk, so if you like steampunk and wacky humor and just getting a good giggle, you definitely want to check these books out for that, but also they do contain a lot of mystery and travel. The first book takes place in England. The second book is when they travel to Scotland, which is super fun, and the third book includes several countries that are traveled to, so it definitely fits this. And I'm kind of excited to see if they travel to other places in the last couple of books, so we'll see what happens. Then I have right here The Thornbirds by Colleen McCullough. This is the story of a family who moves from New Zealand to Australia, and it's basically, first of all, I would say about how this family has a lot of struggles in their new environment and things like that. But in addition, the main character, Maggie, grows up and she falls in love with this Catholic priest. They fall in love, but obviously because of his Catholic priestness and his ambition to be a cardinal, they can't really be together. So, can you say emotional turmoil? I really enjoy this book. I love how strong the setting is in this book. I love reading about just the outback of Australia, and the character development is really interesting in this, and just the motivations of the characters are very interesting, and also it has a flipping awesome miniseries. Go watch it. Even if you don't read the book, go watch the miniseries. It is flipping beauty. Last book, which is The Shipping News by Annie Proulx. I have no idea how to say her name. Here you go, just in case you want to know what the author's name is. Anyway, this book, for the most part, takes place in Newfoundland, which is why I picked it. I'm pretty sure I said Newfoundland right. Just don't kill me if you live there and I said it wrong. It is about a man named Coyle. His wife, who he was kind of estranged from, dies, and him and his daughters decide to move to Newfoundland to live with an old aunt that he has. And it's basically just Coyle kind of trying to deal with life and a new situation and with new people, and it's a very interesting literary fiction thing. It also contains one of my favorite couples in the world, which is Coyle and Wavy. But it is definitely an interesting story, and I definitely love seeing the psychology of the people. And the writing style is really beautiful and also very thought-provoking. If you want a cool literary fiction, thought-provoking kind of book, this is definitely the kind of book to pick up. Those were my June monthly recommendations that had to do with around the world and travel and all that stuff. So I hope you guys will check out some of these books. And that is it for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye!